So like cat and vegetarian, and also at Woodcock Watch New Jersey, my newest handle on Twitter.
Yeah, so if you want to be able to watch all of this later, you can go to wildlifebiogal.com. You'll be able to have links to the Periscope. You also have links to YouTube and SoundCloud, which I usually am pretty good with getting those up right away, but because we're in the middle of the conference right now, it might be a little while longer before I get those up, so might even be as late as this weekend before those go up. But I will also make an announcement on Twitter when those are put up and available. So anyways, as we said, we're live from NAOC here at Washington, D.C. So NAOC is the North American Ornithological Conference.
It's a mouthful.
Yes, yeah. So it's always hard trying to remember getting that all right. But so we're in the middle of the conference right now. There's a whole bunch of talks and everything going on.
14 now, I think.
Something like that. It's crazy. Yeah. There's so many rooms filled with conference talks. This morning was the first plenary with Jessica Meir, which was absolutely amazing. Yeah. I mean, it was just great. I mean, if you ever want to have a quality plenary speaker, get her to come talk to your thing. I mean, she's a great biologist. I mean, that was some awesome work that she was doing with penguins, and then what was the other bird? It was some
the bar-headed
goose. Yes, yeah. It was the goose. Yeah. And it's just like really inspirational, like, you know, not giving up, you know, on your dreams and just keep pushing through until you get to what you want to do.
And I think also that your dreams have a funny way of coming true sometimes. Like, she wanted to be an astronaut, and instead went to school for biology and still became an astronaut.
Right, exactly. So, and it's just like how, I mean, sometimes you might not think that, you know, a career in ornithology, like, could relate to being NASA scientist, but it all somehow can like tie into whatever it is you want to do. And so that was really good. There's a lot of great other activities going on. You can go out and bird, where people have been going out and exploring Washington, D.C. You know, we went down and saw the White House the other day, which was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of really great things going on. There's going to be a lot of other really good talks coming on. Hey there. And so yeah, just tune in. You know, we'll keep having more broadcasts. There's going to be a lot of posters tonight, which are going to be really good. So I'm excited to see all the student posters that are going to be up and about. But for right now, we're going to talk to Kathleen about her life in science. So we're going to talk about some of her academic history, where she's been, some of the research that she's done, and then also a little bit of SciComm, so like the things that she likes to do. Like, you know, that have influenced her with SciComm. So if you guys have any questions while we're talking, feel free to send those in, and like, you know, we want to make this maybe a little bit more of a discussion based thing, especially since we're doing this on the fly right now. So so anyways, why don't you tell us about your academic background, like, you know, where you went to school, you know, did you like it, what was good about it, you know, tell us, you know, a little bit about those universities, like, you know, what their biology programs are like.
Okay, yeah. So I guess I should start with saying I'm a Cookie, which means I graduated from Cook College at Rutgers University. Cook is the land-grant school.
Oh, okay.
So it had a mission of really doing the sciences that are about the world and making sure that we care for it in a way that sustains ourselves and other species. So all the programs there, with the exception of a handful, were science-based. We had a journalism major and a human ecology, I think, but those were the, you know, least scientific of what we offered. But everything there was science-based and mostly environmental sciences.
Okay.
So I wasn't actually a bio major, so it feels really weird to be like, hey, I'm a biologist now, because my first degree is actually in natural resources and ecology. So there I studied.
Real quick, hey there to Berlin, Germany. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. So you got
we're international
all around the world.
now.
Yeah.
So I did take ornithology while I was there. But for the most part, I felt like I studied a lot of physical ecology and environmental sciences. So the abiotic side of ecosystems.
Okay.
And from there, I was like, okay, great, I'm done with academia. I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to be a teacher. And so I was actually a science teacher for a number of years, teaching middle school science, because I thought really getting a strong foundation in middle school is what can help make good scientists. And knowing science literacy is a huge issue in this country, or the lack thereof, science literacy, that I wanted to help like narrow that gap. So I actually went and worked in an urban classroom for 6 years, teaching, you know, basic science principles to 5th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders over the 6 years I was in a classroom. But I wanted a bit more of a challenge, so I decided to go back for my master's. So I did that after 2 years. So I was working full time and went back to school at night at another state school, Montclair State University, which had a biology program. And so I joined there, did ornithology yet again because you can't get enough birds. You know, that's why we're here, because you can't get enough birds. 2,000 people agree.
Which apparently it's the largest bird conference ever anywhere. Something, I think is what they were saying this morning. So, I mean, that's crazy. That's, if you love birds, this is where you should be.
Should be, yes. Fly here now.
Exactly.
So yeah, from there I got a chance to do a little bit more research. I started my own research project, working with a long-term data set with my advisor, Dr. John Smallwood. And his work was really instrumental in getting the American kestrel relisted as threatened species in our state.
So tell us a little bit about the kestrel.
So the American kestrel is the smallest falcon in North America, and they're really good to study because they're easy to find because they like nest boxes. So if you put up boxes, the theory is they will come.
All right.
What has been discovered is they don't come for very long. That they show up the first couple years, and you look like you're going to get this great study and these great, sample sizes, and then they start disappearing. And it doesn't matter where in the country nest box programs have been started, they all sort of have this, initial increase and then big decrease for the remainder of the data collection period for years. So that data set, I think, is like 20, 21 years, and, they're always hovering record low numbers, like 19 out of 100 boxes used, as opposed to, like, the record was like 57 in its heyday. So kestrels are on the decline, and that was some of the work I ended up doing with him, looking at the return rates.
And we're just going to give a quick shout out back to from Russia there. Thanks for joining us. That's great. So if you have any questions, anybody out there, feel free to ask. Like I said earlier, we're going to try to make this a little bit more discussion based. I'll keep asking questions of Kathleen here in the meantime. But yeah, if you have any questions about birds, about Kathleen's work with birds, with kestrels and woodcocks, feel free to ask away. If you want to ask any questions about the conference that's going on right now, because we're live from North American Ornithological Conference. It's going to get harder and harder to get it out by the end of the week. So, but anyways, feel free to ask. So like with the kestrel work, like for those of us, let's assume we don't have any so we got our first question here from Gregory Go. So any parasites in nest boxes?
Yeah, so that was one of the things I was curious about. I didn't look at them directly. That was the work of someone else in the lab. But I was curious if the age of the nest box perhaps had an impact on their usage. That if older boxes perhaps were weathering more, they were harder to find, or parasite accumulation would cause them to be less attractive to the birds coming back. So that was what I was looking to test. We couldn't find any evidence of that. It didn't matter what the age of the box was, if it was a brand new box or if it was an older box. Part of that could be because we clean them out every year. But one of the things we know is, the kestrels don't care. They don't really care about housekeeping whatsoever. Like, they move in, they're like, hey, I can fit, great, I'm in. Like, no spring house cleaning. Yeah. Maybe it's too early in the season, it's too cold, but regardless, they weren't really, taking care of them. So if they were anticipating older sites perhaps had more parasites, then, they might have been inaccurately, using that information. But it seems much more likely it's just a case of declining numbers.
All right.
Because there was other work done a couple years before that in Canada that showed that kestrels actually preferentially will choose boxes over natural cavities. So they have to have cavities, the holes in trees to nest in. They're not going to be in an open nest, and they can't make themselves. So they're highly dependent on other species like woodpeckers making the holes or people putting up boxes. Like bluebirds. Bluebirds have similar programs.
All right. Nice. So talk to us a little bit about your PhD. So you said you went to Rutgers for your PhD.
Right.
How is that? How's your PhD going?
So I finished up at Montclair. I defended the work there, and then about 2 years later, I am now back in a PhD program. And there, I still am interested in the human-bird dynamic. So I'm just working with a different species now. Now it's the American woodcock, I like to describe it as the shorebird that decided to live in the woods because it is in Ceratiformes. It's a shorebird, but most woodcocks actually live in forests.
Okay.
They have the same probing, mechanism for finding food that you see with the sandpipers and everything on the beach, but they are shorebird and they get earthworms out of the soil here.
Okay.
So my work in particular is going to look at their apparent shift in habitat usage from these early successional forests, which would be like fields with shrubs in them. So sort of annoying to walk through. You'll find vines and prickers and things like that, but you can still see, and then you'll have like junipers and things like that, and maybe a couple young trees is their ideal habitat. But what we're seeing, at least in New Jersey where I work, which is the most urban state in the U.S., is that they are being found in post-industrial sites. And what I mean by post-industrial sites are sites that have been historically used in some form of industry. It could be quarries, it could be railroads, it could be a chemical plant, something that has had an adverse effect on the environment there. It could just be there was originally no soil. Liberty State Park, which overlooks the Statue of Liberty, is one of our study sites. And there, actually, the soil that's there isn't natural whatsoever. It's just fill from when they built out the railroads as they continue to expand to meet the needs of New York and the other areas that New York is connecting to. So it's not natural soil, but it's, just this sludge of, things we wouldn't want to be near.
Right.
You go there, you work, you go home and shower immediately to get it all off your skin.
Oh, nice.
So we have this understanding, and I think it's far from perfect right now, that anything we touch is bad for nature. And what we're seeing from my lab is that may be way too simplistic of an understanding of these systems.
Okay.
That, in Jurassic Park, you have life will find a way. Jeff Goldblum is all about this. Yeah. And I think he was really on something.
I always try to use it whenever I can in some sort of science method. It's always so perfect, pulling anything basically from Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah.
So.
That probably had a huge influence on why I'm sitting here today.
Right, yeah.
But we have seen that wildlife can adapt. We have, my advisor, Klaus Holzapfel, likes to talk a lot about the attractive nuisance.
Okay.
That, this area is really attractive, and then it creates problems because all this wildlife moves in, and they're not always the best neighbors. Raccoons are really nosy. They get in your garbage. They knock the cans down. They wake you up. So we have these abandoned post-industrial landscapes that wildlife are beginning to move into. And so my work is looking at the American woodcock as one of these species that's making this decision. So I'm looking at them from an individual sense. Like each individual is choosing to stop in these sites and breed for a season.
All right.
And I'm curious to know what cost or benefit do they gain from that decision.
Okay.
And to hopefully build that out to population level to see, as a whole, can this help the species?
Right.
Are these habitats really going to be these great refuges? These are almost 500,000, post-industrial sites throughout the U.S. right now.
Right.
So, oh my God, if we could capitalize on land we've messed up on for wildlife, we could really turn things around.
Yeah, if that's something that they can utilize, even without having to completely get to the point where you're having to restore it, they're already starting to utilize it before you have to go through and completely, fix it. That'd be interesting to know. Yeah, for sure.
And it depends what you're looking for also. Like what you define as your end, goal. Do you want an entirely native system? We haven't figured out yet how to make things entirely natural after we've mucked around in them.
Right.
So is the next thing just having a biodiverse system? Because when you do restoration, it doesn't lead to the greatest biodiversity